Emily's heart pounded fiercely as she sprinted toward the source of the chaos. Each splash from her footsteps echoed loudly in the deserted street, adrenaline overshadowing her exhaustion. She quickly spotted the twisted remains of a dark sedan, wrapped around a street lamp, smoke billowing ominously from beneath its crumpled hood. Rain hammered relentlessly, obscuring her vision, yet she moved forward without hesitation. Her medical instincts screamed louder than any fear or uncertainty. Someone needed her help, and she couldn't turn away. Reaching the wreckage, Emily gasped as she saw a man slumped against the steering wheel, blood trickling down his forehead, mixing with raindrops streaming over his pale skin. She grasped the car door, pulling desperately. It groaned open with resistance. Leaning in, she felt for his pulse, praying silently as her fingers pressed against the cold skin of his neck. A faint heartbeat fluttered beneath her touch, weak, but still there. "Hang on," she whispered, determination steadying her trembling voice. Emily quickly assessed his condition. Shallow breaths hinted at trauma to his chest, possibly internal injuries. Time was critical now. Without hesitation, she stripped off her jacket, wrapping it firmly around his chest to stabilize him as best as she could. Her damp fingers fumbled for her phone, slipping on the wet screen before successfully dialing 911. "There's been a serious accident on Pine Street," she spoke urgently. "Male victim unconscious, likely internal trauma. Hurry." As she ended the call, the man stirred slightly, eyes fluttering open for a brief moment. His gaze met hers, confusion and pain evident, yet mixed with something more profound, almost hopeful. "You'll be okay," she assured him softly, fighting the lump forming in her throat. Suddenly, sirens pierced through the downpour, red and blue lights splashing across the scene, casting shadows that danced eerily around them. Paramedics swiftly took over, gently but efficiently loading the injured man onto a stretcher. Emily stepped back, her heart aching as they whisked him away into the stormy darkness. Left alone again, the adrenaline receded sharply, leaving her shaking with cold, exhaustion, and lingering worry for the stranger she'd just saved. She realized belatedly that she hadn't even asked his name, a detail now oddly important in the aftermath. As Emily resumed her journey home through the drenched Seattle streets, the rain felt heavier, colder, as though reflecting the uncertainty that now consumed her. Something about tonight felt different, a subtle shift had occurred within her. This encounter, fleeting yet intensely personal, had shaken loose something deeply buried. Reaching her modest apartment, she collapsed onto her worn sofa, shivering beneath a heavy blanket. Her mind replayed the stranger's gaze, haunted by a sense of unfinished business. Who was he? And why did she feel that their paths would inevitably cross again? Emily stood frozen, momentarily speechless, as her eyes took in the man before her. Last night's frail figure was now replaced by someone utterly composed. Every detail from his tailored charcoal suit to his confident posture spoke of influence and sophistication. His dark hair neatly combed back, no longer obscured by blood or rain, accentuated his striking features. Yet his eyes, deep and calm, held the same gentle intensity she remembered vividly from beneath the shattered windshield. "Please sit." He gestured politely toward the elegant chair across from him. Emily hesitated briefly before complying, her heart racing as she settled into the plush velvet seat. The refined ambience of the Pinnacle, with its soft lighting, smooth jazz playing softly in the background, and panoramic view of Seattle's skyline, was overwhelming compared to the sterile chaos she was accustomed to at the hospital. Nervously, she folded her hands in her lap, suddenly self-conscious about her simple attire. "I must admit," he began, his voice warm and composed, "I wasn't sure you'd come. After everything that happened last night, I wouldn't blame you for wanting to leave it all behind." He leaned forward slightly, genuine gratitude evident in his expression. "But I'm extremely glad you came, because I owe you my life." Emily felt heat rise to her cheeks. I was just doing my job," she murmured softly, lowering her gaze. "Any nurse would have done the same." "Maybe," he replied gently, a faint smile forming on his lips. "But not everyone would have risked themselves in the middle of a storm without hesitation. My name is James Sullivan. I run Sullivan Tech here in Seattle. You may have heard of us." Emily blinked, recognition dawning on her. Sullivan Tech was renowned, a titan in the technology world known for innovation and philanthropy. Her mind spun with confusion. Yes, I know the name. But I didn't. Well, I never expected you. He chuckled softly, a sound reassuringly human amidst his polished exterior. Appearances can be deceiving. Last night taught me that. His gaze became thoughtful, lingering on her face. The truth is, Emily, your act of kindness saved more than just my life. It saved something deeper. You showed me humanity in its purest form. Emily shifted slightly in her seat, unsure how to respond. That's very kind of you to say, Mr. Sullivan. James, he gently interrupted, his eyes warm and encouraging. Please call me James. James, she corrected, feeling slightly more at ease despite her lingering nerves. I'm glad you're okay. But why am I here tonight? James leaned back thoughtfully, taking a breath as if preparing himself. Because I have a proposal for you. One that might seem unconventional, but could benefit us both greatly. He paused, observing her reaction carefully. My mother left behind a significant charitable trust before she passed. To inherit it, there's a requirement. I must be married before my 33rd birthday, exactly 3 months from now. Emily's eyes widened slightly, realization creeping in. You're asking me to? James nodded calmly, his gaze sincere. I'm asking you to pretend to be my fiancé. Only for 3 months. In exchange, I'll help you fulfill any dream you have. Anything within my power. Emily felt her pulse quicken, her mind racing with questions, doubts, and a sudden spark of possibility. Could she really step into this world, even temporarily? Yet her heart whispered something louder. Maybe, just maybe, this was her chance at finally realizing her mother's dream of a free clinic. Think about it, James added gently, reading her hesitation. But know this. I meant every word when I said you saved something deeper than my life. You restored my faith in humanity, Emily. And I believe fate had a hand in bringing us together. Emily took a shaky breath, meeting his earnest gaze. Her instincts warned her it was reckless, yet something deeper stirred within, urging her forward. All right, James. Her heart lurched painfully the moment she recognized the confident swagger, the condescending smirk, the perfectly tousled hair. He stood near the bar, a champagne flute in hand, observing them with eyes that instantly unnerved her. Their eyes locked for a moment, and he raised his glass with a mock salute, then began to make his way toward her. Emily froze. James noticed the shift in her posture, his hand subtly tightening around hers. Are you okay? He asked softly. She didn't get the chance to answer. Well, if it isn't Emily Carter, Mark said smoothly, his voice tinged with amusement. You always had a way of landing on your feet. He turned to James. And you? I didn't expect this from you, Sullivan. James's expression hardened, his tone cooling instantly. This isn't the place, Mark. Mark smirked, ignoring the warning. I always wondered how far she'd go for a cause. Now I know. It only takes a few $1 million and a fake ring. Emily stiffened, the words striking like ice against her skin. Before she could respond, James stepped forward. You're drunk and you're wrong, he said calmly. But there was an edge beneath his words. You're not welcome here. Mark leaned in, lowering his voice just enough to cut. You really think this is going to work out? She's not one of us, James. And she knows it. You think you can build something real on a lie? Security approached, alerted by James's subtle nod. Mark stepped back with a mock bow. See you around, Emily, he said before disappearing into the crowd. The room dimmed again, but the damage lingered. James turned to her, his eyes searching. I'm sorry, he said gently. I should have known he might try something. Emily shook her head slowly, trying to slow her breath. It's not your fault, she murmured, but doubt crept in like a cold wind. Mark's words echoed in her chest. Not because she believed him, but because deep down, she feared he might be right. They left the event early that night. In the car, silence sat heavy between them. Emily stared out the window, the city lights blurring like raindrops. At the mansion, she excused herself and went straight to her room, needing space to think. Alone, she stared at her reflection in the vanity mirror, her diamond ring catching the light, a beautiful lie wrapped around her finger. But just as she was about to take it off, a knock came at the door. Emily. James's voice was low. She opened the door, her eyes meeting his. "I know this started as a deal," he said, his voice sincere. "But I need you to know, none of it has felt fake to me lately. Not with you." Tears welled in her eyes as he reached out and gently took her hand. "I don't care what Mark said," James added, "because what we're building, this hospital, this partnership, maybe even more, feels real. At least to me." Emily didn't reply, but she didn't pull her hand away either. Because despite everything, it felt real to her too. The day of the hospital inauguration dawned soberer than Emily had imagined. Not solemn. No, it was filled with light and color, and people whose faces transported Esperanza. But for her, it carried a weight that no speech or celebration could dissipate. As she stepped outside onto the grand terrace where the ribbon cutting would take place, her hand brushed unconsciously against the necklace James had given her. A small silver pendant with the word hope engraved. It felt heavier today, not because of doubt, but because she finally understood what it had always represented. Not a promise of what might be, but the proof of what had already been built together. James stood by the edge of the stage, his cane in one hand and a smile in the other. His body had recovered slowly, painfully, but his strength now radiated more from within. The accident had left a scar above his eyebrow, a faint line barely visible. But for Emily, it marked the moment everything changed. It wasn't just a near-death experience. It was the birth of something fierce and unwavering between them. He had nearly lost his life for her, and she had nearly lost herself without him. The mayor stepped up to the microphone, offering grand words about legacy, innovation, and community. Cameras flashed. Applause rose in waves. But Emily barely heard it. Her eyes were fixed on the white ribbon stretched across the main entrance of the new Sullivan Carter Community Hospital. A name she hadn't expected, but one James had insisted on. When her name was called, Emily walked up to the front of the stage, her black heels echoing softly on the wood. James extended his hand, steady and warm. She took it without hesitation. "This hospital," James began, his voice calm but carrying, "is not just a building. It's the realization of a vision. A vision that started with my mother and found its true shape in a storm, in the hands of a woman who refused to let a stranger die in the rain." Gasps of emotion rippled through the crowd. Emily felt her throat tighten. "She saved me," he continued, "and through her courage, reminded me of what truly matters. So today, I don't just dedicate this hospital to my mother's dream. I dedicate it to the woman who made me believe again." The crowd erupted in applause, but Emily barely noticed. Her eyes shimmered as James handed her the ceremonial scissors. With one swift, decisive cut, the ribbon fell. Cheers broke out, the cameras flashed again, and petals rained gently from above. But all Emily saw was James. His expression was one of quiet awe, as if he still couldn't believe she was real, standing beside him, not as part of an arrangement, but as the heart of everything he now hoped for. That afternoon, as patients began entering the lobby, as nurses moved gracefully between stations, and as the hospital breathed its first breaths of purpose, Emily slipped away to the East Wing. Her clinic, the Carter Free Clinic, was opening on the same day, in the same structure as promised. Smaller, humbler, but just as powerful. The exam rooms were simple, the waiting area cozy, but every detail echoed the memory of her mother, right down to the lavender scent drifting from the reception desk. James found her there, standing alone at the doorway. "Looks even better in person," he said. She smiled, brushing away a tear. She would have loved this place. He stepped closer. "She'd be proud of you." Emily turned to face him. "And your mom? You think she'd be proud of all this?" James nodded slowly, eyes fixed on hers. "She always said love builds what money can't. I think she'd be thrilled." The moment stretched between them, long and unspoken. Then, as the sky outside began to darken with the whisper of another rainstorm, Emily reached for his hand. "Ready to save the world?" she asked playfully. "Only if you're by my side," he replied. They stood there, beneath the sign that bore her name, wrapped in a silence deeper than vows, and stronger than any storm they'd ever faced. And when the first drop of rain tapped the glass outside, they smiled, because they knew now that even in the darkest weather, they had become each other's shelter.